Grandpa, Grandma, I'm really hungry. May I please have something to eat?
Feed you? Aren't you old enough to get yourself a job and pay for your own food instead of mooching off of us?
No, I'm only 14.
Old enough to do work. Well, you can do some cleaning and cooking around here, and we will give you food in exchange.
I couldn't help but notice that what they were essentially offering me was becoming their slave. They even gave me a maid's uniform. Sadly, working around the house didn't get me any better lodgings and barely that much more food, but it did cause them to treat me even worse. As I was washing the kitchen floors, my grandmother came into the room.
You are doing such a terrible job. Look at this floor. You've been scrubbing it for 10 minutes now, and it's still as filthy as you are. I would have figured that someone like you would know how to clean at least a little bit.
What do you mean? The floor is almost spotless. Hi, my name is Sophia, and I have a very difficult relationship with my family. Although not all of them are terrible people, there are definitely those that have made my life a nightmare, but also more than a few that really made me feel loved and wanted. It's a bit difficult to explain, but let me start by saying that my parents were amazing people. However, it was their marriage that caused the rift with my grandparents, though. When I was young, I never realized why my grandparents were so cold towards my father and I, but later, when I grew up. I found out that my grandparents hated me and my father, and were always upset that my parents had gotten married against their wishes. You see, my father is black and my mother was white. They had 2 children, myself and my younger brother Mitch, who looked very different. I looked exactly like my father with dark black skin, while my younger brother looked like he had a slight tan. As such, my grandparents loved him so much, but because of their hatred of me and my father, they always kept their distance. I do remember the last time that they visited, though. They had bought my little brother a new bike and came over to give it to him.
Here you go. Mitch, a brand new bike. Thanks, guys. It's amazing. I love it. Great. That's really nice of you. But what is the special occasion? What do you mean? Can't we get our favorite grandchild a present? Of course, it's good of you to bring him a gift, but you never get any gifts for Sophia. And why would we? She's filthy just like you. I can't understand why my daughter would marry an animal like you, but at least we got one grandchild worthy of our family name out of it.
Soon after that, though, my parents stopped talking and cut all ties with my grandparents. I later found out that it was because my parents were just sick and tired of the obvious favoritism that my brother was getting, and all because, our skin color. Time passed, though, and I began to think about them less and less. Until one day my parents were closing their business when someone tried to mug them. During the robbery, the thief turned violent and shot and killed my parents. A police officer showed up at our house and told my brother and I the bad news. The month after their deaths passed by in a blur. Neither my brother or I knew what was going to happen to us. After all, I was 14 and Mitch was 10. It wasn't like we could live on our own. The one person that wanted to take us in was our father's brother Henry. But unfortunately, he lived in a small house and didn't have room for us, so our future was unknown. That is, until our grandparents stepped forward and offered to take us in. I was incredibly worried, and when we arrived at their house, my fears were validated. For starters, my room was barely more than a large closet, while Mitch's room was massive. 5 people could have slept in king-sized beds in his room. When it came to having meals, they never told me when they were making anything. Occasionally, I would find them eating and help myself to some food, but otherwise, I would go hungry. Grandpa, Grandma, I'm really hungry. May I please have something to eat?
Feed you? Aren't you old enough to get yourself a job and pay for your own food instead of mooching off of us?
No, I'm only 14.
Old enough to do work. Well, you can do some cleaning and cooking around here, and we will give you food in exchange.
I couldn't help but notice that what they were essentially offering me was becoming their slave. They even gave me a maid's uniform. Sadly, working around the house didn't get me any better lodgings and barely that much more food, but it did cause them to treat me even worse. As I was washing the kitchen floors, my grandmother came into the room.
You are doing such a terrible job. Look at this floor. You've been scrubbing it for 10 minutes now, and it's still as filthy as you are. I would have figured that someone like you would know how to clean at least a little bit.
What do you mean? The floor is almost spotless. She was, of course, not even looking at the floor, and she suddenly walked up behind me and shoved her foot hard into my back and caused me to collapse onto the bucket I was using, and causing it to spill out onto the floor. All my hard work was undone, and I was incredibly sore. Deep down, I knew that I couldn't say or doing anything and just cleaned up the mess that she had made. As she was walking away, I heard her mutter some racist phrases, but I doubt you would want me to repeat them. The next day, my grandfather barged into my room at 4 a.m. and threw a bucket of boiling hot water on me and then yelled at me.
You lazy piece of crap. We give you food and a bed to sleep on, and you can't clean anything right. Your grandmother told me how you were disrespectful to her yesterday. I am leaving to go and visit friends shortly. And when I get back later this afternoon, you'd better have the entire house clean and spotless, or else you regret being here.
Just as before, I didn't dare say anything. But the moment he left, I cried until my eyes were dry and then got busy doing as I was told. Later, before my grandparents came home, though, I called my Uncle Henry and begged him to come and get me.
I am so sorry, Sophia. But your grandparents legally are your guardians. I can't come there and take you, or else they'll have me arrested.
But they are treating me like a slave and abusing me.
I know, sweetheart. Don't worry, though. I'll give you money from time to time to keep you fed and such. Just keep calling me and let me know that you are all right. It's going to be okay.
After that, my uncle would sneak me food and money to help me out. The next few years were terrible for me, and I barely felt like a member of the family. Mitch, however, was treated like a god and was given literally everything he ever asked for. It was absolutely enraging, but I bided my time. Finally, my 18th birthday came and passed, and of course, no one other than my Uncle Henry acknowledged it. However, my grandparents did tell Mitch some good news.
Mitch, in 4 years, you will be 18, and we will of course cover your entire school career. How does that sound? I'm assuming that you won't be doing the same for that idiot Sophia, right? Who? Oh, you mean that abomination? No, of course not. She's just lucky we haven't kicked her out on the street.
I chose to just smile because I knew that in a few days that I would be leaving and that I would never again have to deal with them again. And just as my uncle and I had planned. I did just that. I left in the middle of the night while everyone was asleep, and I never looked back. A few months later, my uncle helped me apply to get a better education so that I could later apply for law school, and while it was difficult, I worked hard and was accepted and eventually graduated and was hired by the government as a prosecutor. I mostly worked on cases where people owed money to the government, and it was my job to decide how severe the punishment would be. Then I would present it to a judge, and they would make a determination on my opinions if the people would be fined or if it was bad enough, if they would be sent to prison. I found that I was very good at this job, and I would work with those people that had merely fallen a bit behind on payments and get them back on track. While those people that were really breaking the law, I saw fit to get them the punishments they deserved. So when I saw my grandparents' names on a file in the system, I was filled with excitement. Of course, it would be a conflict of interest if I worked on their case as I was family, despite the fact that they didn't think of me as such. Looking into their file, I saw that they hadn't paid their taxes in over a decade and owed tens of thousands of dollars. Seeing this, I knew that there was a chance that my coworker would have the choice to fine them heavily or propose prison time. And so I went to talk to them, and after I told them who they were to me and what they had done to me, he asked how I wanted them to be punished, and I told him that I wanted him to justify giving them the absolute highest punishment possible, to which he laughed and promised that he would. A few weeks later, I got a phone call from them.
Sophia, listen, we heard that you work for the government now. Listen, we are in a bit of a problem, and we need you to help us.
Oh, you have got to be kidding me. You seriously have the nerve to ask me for help?
Of course I do. We fed you, clothed you, and gave you a bed. You owe us a great deal. Plus, you fled from our home and made our neighbors look poorly at us. You ruined our reputation, and it has taken years to repair it.
Oh, just shove that nonsense up your ass. You also treated me like a slave and abused me for no better reason than because you are racist idiots. Just so you know, I could have helped you, and I chose to, instead, ensure that you will suffer the worst punishment possible. If I were you, I would get used to the idea that you will be spending the rest of your miserable lives in prison, and even if you manage to live long enough to get out of prison, you'll be penniless if you do. And with that, I hung up the phone and blocked their number. I never actually did speak with them ever again, but I did keep track of them. Sure enough, they did end up going to prison, and prison was not kind to them. They spent over 10 years behind bars, and my grandfather passed away from a stroke while in prison. My grandmother did manage to live long enough, but once she was released, she was broken as a person and ended up living on the street. I was confused why my brother hadn't taken her in, but it turned out that he too was living on the street. He had become too dependent on our grandparents, and when they went to prison, he squandered what remained of their money after the government had taken what was owed to them. I have seen him and my grandmother a few times begging, but all I ever do is laugh at them. As far as I'm concerned, they got exactly what they deserve. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.